9.5, adding and subtracting rational expressions. Before we start with problems where you have to factor and do all kinds of crazy things with polynomial, I want to remind you about how to add and subtract fractions. So this is just a little reminder here. If I had 3/7 plus 2/7. So this time we're adding and subtracting. That's different than multiplying and dividing. Whenever you add and subtract fractions, you have to make sure that the denominator is the same. So I have 3 parts out of 7, and I'm adding 2 parts out of 7, so that would make a total of 5 parts out of 7. Notice that I can only add these because I'm taking them out of the same size. So the parts are sevenths. So if I have a problem, so that's example 1. So if I have a problem like this, where I have 3 parts out of 7 plus 4 parts out of 5, this means that these parts are a different size than these parts. This one, the whole has been divided into sevenths, and here the whole has been divided into fifths. So we're not talking about things that are the same size. So we need to make them the same size before we can put them together. So in this case, I need to find what's called a common denominator. I'm going to try to find a number that these would both respond to. I'm going to find the least common multiple, the smallest number that both 7 and 5 are factors of. And that number is 35. So I have to think about, okay, I'm turning sevenths into 35ths. So I would have to take this times 5 to get 35, so I have to take the top times 5, so this becomes a 15. What would I take times 5 to get 35? That would be 7, so I have to take this times 7, so I have 28. So now that these parts are the same size, I can put them together. 28 35ths plus 15 35ths is 43 35ths. So let's look at the third example. This time it's 1/2 plus 3/4. Now notice this time I don't really want to, like on this one, I could have just multiplied the 7 and the 5 together. But on this one, I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to find the smallest number that they will both go into. And in this case, it is 4. So I would take this one times 2. This one doesn't have to be multiplied by anything. It stays the same. So my answer would be 5/4. If from the very beginning I would have said, okay, to get my common denominator, I'm just going to multiply those two together, I would have got something in the end that had to be reduced, which is fine when it's a number like 10/8. That's easy to reduce. But when we start talking about polynomials, we don't want to have to reduce at the end because that's going to require more factoring. So we want to make sure that the number we pick here, we're not just multiplying these two together. We're actually finding the least common multiple.